Anyone criticising the religion of peace is likely to be accused of stirring up hatred, although I prefer to think of it as stirring up common sense, which appears to have sunk without trace in recent years to the bottom of a swamp of political correctness. Besides, if you really want to stir up hatred, you just have to open a copy of the Quran and start preaching. In a previous video, I tried to point out that the Quran, like the Bible, contains many peaceful verses, and that if people focused on them a bit more, things might be different. But I reckoned without the principle of abrogation, which means that the later violent verses supersede the earlier peaceful ones. So you can talk about a religion of peace all you like, but you're not supported by Scripture. You say peace, the Scripture says war, and the religion says conquest and domination. And yes, we all know that not all Muslims push this agenda, but it's not the tiny minority we keep hearing about. A third of Muslim students in Britain, for example, support killing in the name of their religion, and 40% want to live under Sharia. That's a minority, yes, but there's nothing tiny about it. And this is why Islam would be a problem in the West, even without the help of its leftist enablers, because it is a supremacist ideology that feels entitled to expand using aggressive intimidation, or what I call cultural terrorism. Anyone who criticises Islam publicly can expect to be threatened with physical violence. If that's not terrorism, then what is it? In the world of the cultural terrorist, if you oppose the oppression of women and minorities, you're an enemy of religious freedom. If you despise violent superstition, you're a racist. And if you reject religious totalitarianism, you have a mental illness. Let me tell you something. When you get to the stage where anyone criticizing your beliefs is automatically deemed to have a mental illness, that is a sure sign of mental illness. It's also cultural terrorism. The word Islamophobia is cultural terrorism in action. It's provably, statistically, false as a concept. The number of Muslims who are attacked or abused for who they are is small compared with other groups, and it simply doesn't warrant a special word. In some parts of Northern Europe, Muslims are actually the majority perpetrators of violent attacks. And in the city of Oslo in Norway, all the rapes in that city in the last 3 years, all of them were committed by Muslim immigrants using rape as a weapon of cultural terrorism. The word Islamophobia is pure political opportunism and pure cultural terrorism, intended, like all terrorism, to intimidate people, in this case into shame and silence. And I think that anyone in the West who uses that word for any reason other than to ridicule it should seriously examine their conscience, especially if they're female or gay. Racist used to be a powerful word that would have stopped any civilized person in their tracks. But now when I hear it, my initial reflex is to think less of the person using it and to wish they would invest in a dictionary to save embarrassing themselves any further. Nobody is a racist for objecting to religious privilege, or for wanting everyone to obey the same laws, or for wanting full and equal human rights for everyone without exception. And nobody is a racist for not wanting to eat the cruelty of halal slaughtered meat without being told about it, or for asking someone to show their face in public, or for not wanting to be treated by hospital staff who haven't washed their hands properly because of their stupid religion. And nobody is a racist for asking the police to do their job and uphold the law. 2,000 young girls in Britain were genitally mutilated last year, a crime that's supposed to carry a 14-year prison sentence. Nobody has been prosecuted because police and social workers don't want to cause offence and damage community relations. How thoughtful, how sensitive. Damaging a few thousand young girls, on the other hand, or should I say maiming them for life, is apparently a price worth paying for community cohesion, or should that be cultural terrorism? In the London borough of Tower Hamlets, which has now been completely taken over by Islamic extremists, and where the police are afraid to do their job because doing their job might be Islamophobic, cultural terrorism is practiced openly, with gay people attacked and abused in the streets, women threatened with murder for not covering their face, and just recently a teacher was beaten into a coma with a brick, a knife and a metal rod for having the temerity to be a non-Muslim teaching religion to children. This is what Islamic cultural terrorism brings and is bringing to cities all over Europe. If the far right were behaving like this, you just know that the police would be all over them. Well, I've got news for the Tower Hamlets police. This is the far right. the religious far right, and it doesn't get any further right or any further wrong than that. The relentless erosion of free speech that we've witnessed in recent years has been achieved through Islamic cultural terrorism. In other words, by the threat of a violent response. Free speech used to mean you can say what you like as long as it's true. Now, thanks to cultural terrorism, it means you can say what you like as long as it doesn't offend Muslims, as people all over Europe are finding out to their cost. Islam doesn't like free speech because Islam is afraid of the truth, and with good reason. Because the truth is that a growing number of people in the West find this religion and everything it represents deeply offensive. We find its message deeply offensive, its values deeply offensive, its treatment of women deeply offensive, its attitude to homosexuals, Jews and anyone who isn't a Muslim deeply offensive. Yet nobody's offering us any compensation for hurt feelings. Everything about this wretched religion violates everything we believe in. We'd have to be stupid not to dislike it, and we'd have to be crazy to respect it. And no, we don't need to be educated about Islam. We already know more about it than we want to know, and we know enough to wish we had never heard of it. And that is 100% the fault of Islam, the religion of aggressive intolerance, the religion of phony grievances, tantrums, violent threats, and more tantrums, the religion of cultural terrorism. Peace.